Okay.
I started listening to the last podcast and I realized I sound like a massive stoner, so I'm gonna try to stop doing that. I can't help
You
it
don't
though.
have to. Your name is the Baker, so maybe.
Okay.
Welcome to another episode of The Butcher and the Baker, as we have decided to call it for now.
Yes.
My name is Hayden.
Aren't you going to introduce me to your friends?
Should I?
I'm Martin. I am the co-host, apparently. We decided the butcher and the baker because I'm baking cakes. And Hayden is slaying the ladies.
So, yeah, let's talk about our weeks.
I'm on vacation right now.
Right.
And it turns out I've got another week of vacation, which I didn't know.
Oh.
I didn't. So I'm a tutor, and we tutor while school's going. And they had a 2-week vacation between semesters. So I just figured I'd be going back tomorrow. But then we get an email saying they haven't made our schedules yet, and we're not going to start tutoring till the day after Labor Day. And they still haven't sent out our schedules.
Uh-huh.
So I asked my boss, I'm like, hey, are we? When do we start tutoring? And she never responded. So I'm just going to assume that I don't go to work tomorrow, considering I don't even know my schedule.
Wow. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, did you have like a normal schedule before?
The schedule changes every semester based on like who they need and when.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so that would be important to know.
It would be. I had a dream that I like showed up to work because I wasn't sure if they needed me.
Oh.
And they're like, "Oh, Martin, you don't work today, but we will need you Wednesday, and then you won't work Thursday, and then you will work Friday." And I was like, "No, that's the worst possible schedule for me."
Oh man.
That's all I remember. That's what I think. I'm an adult now because that's what my bad dreams are now.
That sounds terrible.
It was. I woke up in a cold sweat.
You woke up like checking your phone to see if that was your schedule.
Please no.
Hmm.
Well, I have nothing else to report. I've had a rather boring.
Well, how are you spending your vacation?
I'm
doing nothing.
Yeah, I've been playing too many video games, which would be fine, but the problem is I keep waking up every day being like, I'm gonna do such and such. I'm gonna accomplish this thing, and I don't.
I mean, you don't have anything else planned? Like any fun stuff planned? I mean, you have a week of vacation. You could like go out and do something. Like
I'm seeing a friend tomorrow in the hip and trendy Ann Arbor.
Ooh.
Have you heard of Ann Arbor?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's where U of M is. So it's very hip. There's lots to do there.
Sweet.
It's a little like terrifyingly liberal.
Oh, okay.
There's just like hippies everywhere.
Is it going to be like when we went to Toronto and they were having the Pride Parade?
Well, actually, no, it's different. They're in Toronto. Everyone was really nice, right?
Yeah.
But when in Ann Arbor, they're just like a lot. There are actual crazy people there who should be.
Oh wow.
Receiving help.
Oh.
So it's. Sometimes you have some weird experiences if you ever go to Ann Arbor.
Huh. Well, maybe you'll have some stories to share on the next podcast.
One time when I was there, this guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey man, can I have $1 for like a beer or something?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." I give him $1, and he's like, "Oh, thanks, man." And he starts telling me how he's the commander in chief, and he like gives me a hug, and it was really gross.
Okay.
So yeah. Please, if you ever give money to people, assert yourself. Don't be like me. Don't take the hug.
Oh my gosh. What was gross about it? Was he just like stinky or something? Or
I think he smelled like cigarettes. Plus, he was like just all the things he was saying made me really uncomfortable. And his like bristly beard.
Was it like a really like intimate hug, or?
It was definitely more intimate than. I would have preferred not touching him. I'm trying to
Did you like check your wallet afterwards to make sure it was still in your pocket?
I don't remember. It was fine.
Okay.
But yeah, he was just a little crazy. I mean, I don't think he had any bad intentions or anything, to be fair.
When he said he was a commander in chief, was he like? Did you believe him, or do you think he was talking about like Halo or something?
I don't think I would have believed him no matter what.
Okay.
I mean, like, I assumed he was saying that he's the president or
Oh.
something. Yeah, it was very strange. How was your week, Hayden?
Well, my week was pretty good. I'm not gonna go like into as much detail as I usually do because it was pretty much the same old. I went to Shakespeare.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry.
Thanks for interrupting me. Jeez.
I have really intense sneezes now.
Yeah, it was just a normal week. Shakespeare's. I hung out with my parents, watched some Harry Potter. But on Tuesday, my dad attempted to fix my basement sink,
Okay.
but well, he did what he could and told me it was draining fine. It was a little slow, but the water was going down at least. So I was like, well, that's better than it was because before it just wasn't going down at all. So I was like, well, the water's going down. That sounds good to me. So on Saturday, I decided to finish up the laundry that I had to do. So I put a load in the washer and let it run. And when I went downstairs, it was flooding again.
Oh my
So
god.
yeah, so on Saturday, I basically spent an entire afternoon doing the same thing I did last week,
Oh,
wiping it up with a bunch of towels, squeezing it out over the sink, and doing that repeatedly. And then I had to throw all the towels into the dryer and let them dry.
hey.
Yeah, and I was planning on going to a young adult hangout event with the young adults at my church. And I did end up going, but I had to go late because I was caught up doing that,
Yeah.
working on the basement. But yeah, the young adult hangout, that was the other kind of highlight of my week because that was pretty fun. We hung out at this young couple's house named the Shoemakers, and we just hung out in their backyard. They had some yard games, but I didn't play any. But they also had pizza and drinks, and they had a bonfire, or like a little campfire, fire pit type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we all sat around the fire, and we also had s'mores and stuff. And oh, Mike was there, and did you
Wow.
ever yeah. Did you ever meet Alan?
No.
Okay, Alan used to come to Shakes. Oh, you never went to Shakespeare's, did you? I don't think you ever went to
I went
Shakes.
like once.
Oh, okay.
Because I was always busy on Monday nights somehow.
Yeah. So Alan's a character. I don't know what all to say about him. He's just kind of hard to figure out. But yeah, Mike brought Alan, and they hung out for a little bit. Mike, for some reason, was feeling kind of sick. I think he had worked out too hard that morning and didn't drink enough water.
Oh,
So he was like really dehydrated. And then on top of that, he decided to have a beer while he was there. So he was like, that probably wasn't a good idea because now I'm even more dehydrated. So yeah, he ended up having to leave early. He and Alan, but it was pretty fun. We had some interesting conversations. Most of the young people at my church are married couples.
okay.
So there were lots of conversations about married life and stuff like that, and stuff that I couldn't really relate to, but I found very interesting to hear about. So, um,
Oh, these married people and their happiness and
disgusting.
how dare they?
But yeah, so that was pretty fun, and today I can happily say that a family friend of ours named Andrew came over and did manage to fix the sink. So
Oh my gosh,
basement sink is fixed. Woo!
it's wonderful news.
And I am doing a load of laundry right now. So I'll actually have clothes to wear this week.
You must be enthralled.
I am enthralled. Is that the right word? Doesn't that mean like
Yeah,
deeply interested in
you're right.
something?
That means something else. You must be positively thrilled.
I am thrilled, yeah. Absolutely. It was so nice to go downstairs after the dryer or after the washer was
Oh,
done and not have to wade through like 2 inches of water.
oh my gosh.
Yeah. And he sent me a picture of what he fished out of the drain, and
Really?
it was like some plastic cap or something. Like it looked like a I don't know what it was, but it was like some piece of plastic that was all like uh smashed up or something and somehow had gotten down into the drain, and that was what was slowing everything down.
Hmm.
But he managed to get it out, and then it was so funny because I gave him my phone number so he could text me any updates. And I was in church and I felt my phone buzz. And after church, I checked my phone to see what it was, and he had just sent me a picture of the plastic thing like laying on the ground, and he just like captioned it "cured."
That's funny.
Yeah. So that was my week. Not much else to report. You and I
Okay.
played Minecraft a couple nights.
We did. It was
Fun.
deeply satisfying.
Yeah.
I missed those days playing Minecraft for far too long.
Well, you don't have to miss them anymore.
All right.
How's the cake business going?
It's going great. We've been selling lots of cakes.
Great.
Thinking of expanding.
That sounds good. I'm happy for you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I don't
So
think
you're
I'm
still
gonna.
stuck on that one. And I suggested earlier that you skip it, and you got really offended.
Well, yeah. I have to do them in order. People have actually suggested I like make other cakes or cakes I've already made for like events or something,
Oh,
and that's just really ridiculous.
yeah.
And I think we should remove those people from our country.
Wow. That's a bit harsh, but
It is. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm stuck on this cake. I'm not gonna. I basically I need my mom's help.
oh, okay. Do you
Because it
think
is
she can?
hard
Is
enough.
she a good baker?
She's experienced. She's better as a cook, but she'd definitely be able to help me. Is my point.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah, I'm enthralled.
This great conversation. Okay.
So I am reading a book called God's Wisdom for Navigating Life by Tim Keller and Kathy Keller. So you've heard of Tim Keller before?
Yes, I listened to his Sorry, I listened to his sermons.
Yeah, he's pretty cool, pretty smart. So this is a devotional. It's a daily devotional through the book of Proverbs, and obviously I'm in August, so I wanted to share the devotional for August 23rd, which is on the Proverb 28. Sorry, Proverb 29, verse 8,
Okay.
which says, "Mockers stir up a city, but the wise turn away anger." Now, so here's what the devotional says for that. The title of the devotional is Internet Culture.
Hmm.
So I think it's relevant to us because we are
Yeah, web denizens.
web denizens. Yeah. All right. So here's the wisdom. We have learned a great deal about mockers, those who scoff at all truth, claims, and virtue. Here we see that their work not only harms personal relationships, but can stir up a city, that is, undermine an entire social order. Literally, this verse says that mockers set a city on fire, agitating people, stirring up skepticism, doubt, division, and cynicism. This leads to a breakdown in society, because people who listen to mockers can't really believe or trust in any ideals, noble causes, or moral absolutes. It could be argued that technology has, in an enhanced way, given mockers a platform to set our society on fire with polarizing, incendiary speech. Internet culture privileges mockers, whose insults and broadsides are clickbait. It disadvantages the kind of civil, respectful, patient, and careful back and forth that brings a diverse society together. The question is, how do we turn away the anger it causes? That is the challenge for the wise today. Start by not being sucked into its passions yourself. So here are a couple of questions that can get us to start a conversation. Have you found yourself upset by what you read on social media?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you were actually asking me.
Yeah. That's the question for our discussion.
Yes.
Yeah, because I remember in one of our episodes you were talking about, I think it was a BBC article or something about the guy who went to evangelize on a island and got killed. You were like, you've read some of the most offensive things in your life in those comments.
Oh my gosh, yeah, BBC comments are just horrendous. There are so many anti-Jewish things.
What?
Oh my
Why
God.
anti-Jewish?
It's just conspiracy theory. A lot of people still believe that like Jews are running the world.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And then like there's another. No, I won't get into it. Keep going.
What'd you say?
I was about to like rant a bit more, but I don't want to hijack the conversation.
Yeah, so well that kind of brings us to the second question, which is, did you get drawn into it? And I guess the fact that you just canceled the conversation is probably a sign that you are at least somewhat good at not getting drawn into it. I mean, I personally tend to avoid conflict, so I'm not the type of person who will get drawn into it and fire back.
I've always been tempted to join in.
Oh, have you been tempted?
Yep.
So how do you avoid giving into that temptation?
I usually just end up remembering that nobody really changes his mind when he reads things on the internet.
That's a good point, yeah.
And I would just end up being, even though my opinion's different from the other people, I'd end up being pretty much the same as them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's my reasoning.
So there you have it. That's our wisdom for this week. Don't get involved in internet debates because they're just
drugs.
Or drugs? Did you
or drugs. Yeah.
Anything else? Do you have any topics you want to bring up? I hear this is going to be a short podcast.
Well, actually, I have a question. Did you start reading the book I keep trying to get you to read?
No, I still have other books to read.
Your other books aren't as good or as important.
Well, my other book I'm actually reading with my pastor, so I kind of have to be on top of it.
Oh, that's right. I remember.
Yeah, so we didn't end up actually meeting this week, but we're definitely going to meet next week, probably Wednesday or Thursday or something.
So it sounds like you read my book after all.
Oh my gosh. I haven't finished reading the first chapter of the other one, to be quite honest. I was kind of busy working on the podcast, so working on the previous episode.
Do you have like a lunch break at work?
Yeah, sometimes I read a little bit on my lunch break, but like I said, the past week I spent most of my lunch breaks editing the podcast.
Gotcha. Well, what helped me was my reading goals. So last year I read 20 books. That was my goal for the year.
Right. Mm-hmm.
This year it's to read 24.
Nice.
Plus I just have like a pile of books that I want gone. So right now it's a pile. I want them on my bookshelf, fully read.
So
and some of them are quite problematic because I have all of the Lord of the Rings books.
Oh boy.
I've read The Hobbit and the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring. Mm-hmm. And thankfully The Fellowship of the Ring was actually longest. And now I still have the other two, and I have a massive book of all the Sherlock Holmes stories.
Ooh, nice.
I've got to read all that. Yeah, it's going to take a while. And ironically, for my birthday, someone got me The Hobbit in Esperanto, so I have to read The Hobbit again, but in a different language.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's called La Habito.
La Habito. I love it.
La Habito, which I think is pretty fun.
I have the... Sorry. I think that's Caleb, actually. Caleb, you're interrupting the podcast. So are you reading a book right now?
I'm
Oh, you're
reading
reading that Anglican book, aren't you?
Never Silent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first part was about the aftermath of the Rwandan genocide and the Rwandan bishop who just saw all this horrible stuff going on.
Hmm.
And the part two is about um, when
What's that?
once the Episcopal Church started ordaining gay marriage, there was a big controversy about it. So they had the Lambeth Conference, and the Lambeth Conference is a once every 10 years conference between all the archbishops and I think all the bishops too
Hmm.
in the Anglican Church, and they kind of decide what's going on, and the church reaffirmed its stance that um, they don't do gay marriage. I guess
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm trying to say by do, but
Don't
they,
approve of it. Don't acknowledge
yeah,
it.
yeah, I guess that's what I mean.
Affirm it.
What's that?
They don't affirm it.
Yeah, the Episcopalian Church kept doing it anyway, despite church doctrine, and we're saying it was justified. I guess I've heard other people explain it as Paul wasn't referring to gay marriage in this passage; he was actually referring to orgies in the pagan worship, stuff like that. I mean, I guess that would make more sense, but
Do you think that would make more sense?
well, I mean, the point is, at least they're using the Bible. What the people in the Episcopalian Church started saying was that the Holy Spirit came to them and is giving them new scripture, and
Oh
we have to
wow.
let go of the old ancient scripture
Yeah.
because it's old and wrong and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is weird because the scripture is what tells us the Holy Spirit exists in the first place. So
Yeah.
who knows? Are you eating something?
Yeah. Sorry.
What?
I have chips. I said, yeah. Sorry. I have chips.
Oh, it's disgusting.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
They're not even very good. They're just the only snack I have in the house right now.
You're that hungry, huh?
Yeah. I didn't eat dinner.
Well, it's my mom's birthday, so we went out to dinner.
Where'd you go?
We went to P.F. Chang's.
Ooh, cool.
I had some disappointing pad thai.
Aw.
The shrimp was good. My
All right.
mom shared her chicken with me, and the chicken was very good.
Nice.
It was a good time.
Sounds good. I had fish and chips for lunch today.
Did you? How was it?
It's good.
I approve.
The chips were hard because I cooked them in the oven, so they were kind of crunchy. Okay. And I didn't have any
It was
like
like frozen meal.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't have any malt vinegar to put on them. So all I have is like apple cider vinegar, which is still good, but it's not the same. But yeah, they were it was good. I enjoyed it.
That's good. Nothing like fish and chips.
Yeah.
I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, the big old bookstore, and I just saw all these books I wanted to get.
You just said you have too many already.
Yeah, exactly. This is part of the problem. I've got 4 books on my bookshelf to read. Actually, 3. One of them is one of those Jack Reacher spy novels.
I've never heard of that.
One of them is the Anglican Catechism.
Sweet.
And the other is the Notes from a Young Black Chef. There you go.
Is that to help you with your baking?
Yep. No,
Cool.
not really. It's about a guy who's when he was little, he was always getting in trouble,
Okay.
and he's half Nigerian. So his mom's like, okay, I'm gonna send you to be with your family in Nigeria, and they didn't live in like the city or anything. They lived like it's like basically the stereotype African rural.
Oh, really?
Experience.
like a tribe or something?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not a tribe, but I think they lived in. They really lived way out there. I don't know what their living situation was. He had to like walk for miles to go to the town to call his mom and be like, "Mom, please, I'm here, take me back to New York." Stuff like that. And then when he came back, he was still bad anyway. Apparently. So Yeah, that's what that book's about. I've got the La Habito over there as well. I hope I'll read it. I hope I'll be able to understand Esperanto that well. You should learn Esperanto, Hayden.
Don't I have enough on my plate right now?
I should explain what Esperanto is for our viewers.
Yeah.
In the late 1800s, a Polish Jewish man by the name of L.L. Zamenhof, he was sick of racism, he was sick of war, and he decided that what the world needs to cure us of all this hatred is an international language so we could understand each other better. So in his free time, he started working on a language, and he called it the universal language. Eventually, he got it published in a book, which you can still read today, called the Universal Language. It really took off. He published it under like a pseudonym called Dr. Esperanto.
Oh, okay.
Which means the one who hopes.
Oh.
So, yeah, it became really popular. It almost became the language of the League of Nations. But of course, the bloody French vetoed that because they didn't want it to replace French, which is so typical of them. But yeah, anyway, Esperanto is an extremely easy language to learn. It only takes about 150 hours, which is a very short time for a language. Like apparently, I think German takes like 1,500 hours.
Oh my goodness.
And there are lots of the grammar is really simple, pronunciation is simple. Every single word makes specifically one sound. It's not like English where like one letter can change another letter's sound.
Right.
Just like you have on, and then when you have an e at the end, it becomes one.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. But no, in Esperanto, everything has one sound. You have root words, and all you got to do to make that root word into like a noun or a verb or an adjective is to just put a letter at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if I wanted to say I am eating, I would use the verb manjas, which means eating. But if I wanted to say a meal, like the noun, I would say manjo. So like the root word is referring to eating, and then you just change the letters on the end of it to change its meaning. And then breakfast, lunch, and dinner are really straightforward. Breakfast is like matin manjo, which means morning meal. And lunch is tago manjo, which means day meal, and so on. So it's almost like a modular language. You just kind of stick things onto it, and it's really straightforward.
Yeah. So we're gonna learn Esperanto, and then from then on, all of our podcasts are going to be exclusively in Esperanto.
Yeah, we're gonna be an Esperanto podcast. Yep. Bonvenon alla Esperanto podcasto.
Where can I go to learn this? Is there an app?
I use Duolingo, which is an app, but it's also on the computer.
Is it free?
Yeah, it is free. I mean, there'll be ads, but don't worry. You don't gotta pay.
Ads in Esperanto?
I'm afraid not. Usually they're for bad Spotify music.
Oh. Okay.
Like, come listen to Bad Baby on Spotify.
Wow.
Oh no, on Pandora, my bad. Are you eating chips again?
No, I'm sorry.
The manjas chip boy.
So, should we get into our stories?
Yeah, was I meant to work on it?
Did you?
No.
This is going to be a short podcast.
I can read a short story.
Oh, do you have another short story that you wrote?
I sent it to you guys in our little group chat before, but I don't think I've read it on the podcast.
Okay. Wait, is this the one about the fat guy or whatever?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, yeah, you should definitely read that.
I made a story about a fat guy, according to Hayden.
Amazing.
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Huh?
I said, do you want to go first?
I can. I have mine right up here.
Swag.
So while I'm reading mine, you can get yours prepared.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'll do that.
So the story revolves around August, the main character, who is on a ship which is bound for a country called Burbeck.
Burbeck.
Burbeck, and
Okay.
in Burbeck is a village that is in need of some medical help. So there are doctors on board who are going to this country to help the citizens and stuff.
Okay.
But alongside that, there is also some political trouble where the governor of Burbeck is becoming a dictator, basically. So
Okay.
August is basically he's a former monk who had very close ties with a guy named Ivano, who had close ties with the government in their homeland, which is called Ricarda. Um, but Ivano passed away in a tragic fire, so that leaves August to kind of follow in his footsteps, I guess, because he was his
Hmm.
closest friend. So August is basically acting as like a diplomat, that they're going to try to have him kind of talk to Andre, who's the governor of Burbeck, so that he can kind of try to reason with him and say, like, here's why you shouldn't do what you're doing and everything. Um,
Hmm.
but as they just found out, there is a deeper level to their mission, which is that they're also going to make a stop in Everard, which is a country on the way, and they're going to pick up weapons because they want to go into this country armed rather than going in on peaceful terms or whatever, apparently, which
Yeah.
is which has August all fired up because he's like, this was supposed to be a diplomatic mission. Why are we going in with weapons now all of a sudden?
Yes. Yes.
So, so where we left off, the meeting with the main minds of the mission or whatever. The meeting is now over, and August is walking out with Monty, who's the first mate on the ship, and they're chatting about what just happened. So August walked out with Monty onto the main deck. The sun had gone down, and it seemed that most of the crew had gone to bed. August stopped underneath a lamp which was slowly burning out. He put his hands in his pockets and looked at the ground, furrowing his brow. "Did you know we were stopping in Everard to pick up weapons?" he asked Monty, who had gone on walking ahead of him. Monty stopped walking and turned to face August. "No, but I knew we were stopping in Everard, which I guess and I guess it is the biggest manufacturer of weapons in the region," he replied. "But do you think it's necessary?" "Well, if Gordon thinks it's necessary, then I'm sure it must be necessary. And the ambassador made a good point." "But how is this going to impact our diplomatic relationship with the government? How is this going to impact our message of freedom? Won't we appear as one more nation threatening violence in lieu of submission?" Monty scratched his beard and sighed. "Look, I don't know about things like this. I'm just here to do my job." August lifted his eyes and looked at Monty. In the cool evening silence, his stomach full of food, August almost forgot who he was talking to. He put his hands behind his back and chuckled. "Of course, my apologies. It's late. You must be ready to turn in." "Oh, I'm not going to bed. I still have a lot of work to do," Monty responded, turning around and taking a few steps. August began to follow him slowly. "Oh, should do you want me to?" Monty turned around. "August, don't worry. I'm not going to threaten you with a knife for not pitching in. It's okay. Go on." August smirked and nodded. "Well, good night." Monty nodded and walked away. August looked out at the sea. A whispering breeze wrapped around him, sending chills down his spine. He decided to head below deck to his room. The hallway was dim and quiet. The only sound August could hear was the creaking of the ship rocking back and forth, which was almost enough to drown out the whirlwind of thoughts spinning in his head. He paced down the hallway until a familiar aroma caught his attention. He stopped outside one of the doors, from which escaped the smell of smoke, tobacco smoke. From the other side of the door, a man coughed and then said in a raspy voice, "Someone's at the door." Before August could shuffle away, the door was opened by a man August recognized as Santo from the band at dinner. He folded his arms and looked at August down his nose. "We aren't doing private shows," he said. "He's here to see me," came the raspy voice from before. August looked behind the musician. A thin man with dreadlocks and a bushy beard was sat cross-legged on the floor, shirtless and covered in tribal tattoos. He had rings on all of his fingers, each with a huge stone embedded in. He was smoking a long pipe and staring at August through wrinkled eyelids. "Come in." "I don't know who you are," said August, taking a step back. "I am Elias. You seek answers. You want to know about the journey we've set out on, what awaits us at the end." August tilted his head, curious. "What exactly are you talking about?" Elias closed his eyes and hummed. Santo turned around and watched him. August slowly stepped inside the room. In front of the man was a small cloth which seemed to be covering a pile of something. The man reached his hand out and placed it upon the cloth, still humming. Then he mumbled, "Verbeck, Andre." "What do you know of this?" August asked, entering the room completely. "He knows everything," came a female voice from the corner of the room. On one of the beds sat the beautiful Bogdana, accompanied by her brother-in-law, Alonzo, who was passed out drunk with his head in her lap. August smiled politely. Bogdana smirked and winked at him. Santo closed the door behind him, and Elias lifted the cloth, revealing a decomposing monkey carcass. He picked up the monkey and placed its forehead against his own. "Tell me your secrets, old friend. Where are we going?" August decided that whatever this man was smoking, he definitely did not want any. Elias tightened his grip on the dead monkey. "Speak to me, Carlos." Suddenly the lamps flickered and a breeze swept around the room. Then Elias lifted the monkey above his head and spoke. "A cold place, remote, forgotten. The ground is ash and full of stones. The trees are bare and white as bones. The people speak in cries and groans. The king has claimed 1,000 thrones. We all end up in the same place, the land of the dead." Elias dropped the monkey, and it landed with a plop. August pursed his lips. Well, that was obvious. Alonzo awoke suddenly, inhaling sharply. He sat up and looked at August. Hey, it's that guy. Hey, did you bring any more booze?" Elias reached behind his beard and pulled out a necklace that had an empty glass vial on the end. He opened the vial, put it up to his lips, and spit up a pool of black liquid into it. Alonzo passed out on the bed. Elias put the cap back on the vial and ripped the necklace off his neck. He presented the vial to August. "You may have this," he said. "Absolutely not," August replied. "No, really, it's okay. Please don't give that to me." Elias shrugged and put the vial into his knapsack, along with Carlos. He put his pipe back in his mouth, stood up, and walked out the door. And that's all I have so far.
All right, great.
Yeah. But yeah.
Mine is a complete short story, so it might be a bit long.
Okay.
The soft, excuse me. The soft green grass is present underfoot. What are you saying now?
Nothing. I just nothing. I didn't say anything. I said go ahead.
Are you gonna let me go?
Yes. Vamonos.
The soft green grass is pleasant underfoot, the wizard noted as he walked through the great plain of Nadenor. The sun was warm and the wind rushed peacefully about him. It was certainly a good day for a 3,200-mile walk. The wizard of this story is named Rufus, and he was joined by his close friend and servant, Chumley. Rufus was still young and couldn't help but enjoy the walk. He was moving at a brisk but leisurely pace, making the lengthy journey a bit more brief than it might have been otherwise. Chumley was practically sprinting, however, coming up to only about the height of Rufus's thigh. Certainly is a nice day for it, eh, Chumley? Rufus said as he chapped his wooden staff to the ground. Yes, sir, and it has been for the past 2.5 years, Chumley grinned, apparently unperturbed by his friend. Rufus looked down at Chumley, and hummed. He was a cheeky little fellow, a gremlin in appearance, possessing gray skin, sharp little teeth, and pointed ears. He had tiny little wings which looked like those of a baby bat, too weak to fly, not to mention his thin, long fingers, which measured 6 inches in length. Altogether, he was completely terrifying. He belonged to a race called the Chuff, and they had known one another for a very long time indeed. Are you being facetious, Chumley? Inquired Rufus, feeling a bit put out. No, master, but we have been on this walk for some time, replied Chumley, his teeth glinting in the sunlight. Rufus didn't like being called master, but Chumley had referred to him in that way for so long the title stuck. And though he would be loath to admit it, it was a fitting title. Chumley had been serving Rufus for a very long time and all without pay. He did so willingly, mind you. A fine example of this servitude had been that fateful day 2.5 years ago when Rufus, sitting in his armchair and pondering mysteries unknown, suddenly slapped his thigh and, with an exclamation of "Right!" stood up and strolled out of his home. Chumley followed, and this brings us to the story today. The two friends continued their march across the plain. The sun continued to move across the sky. Rufus was pondering some ancient philosophy or another when he spotted something on the great green horizon. Chumley squinted into the distance. What is it, master? I don't know, my friend. Perhaps you should see if you can fly up a tiny bit to get a better look, Rufus recommended. The little gremlin gave a determined nod. He began to huff and puff like a fat man getting out of bed, and his small webbed wings started to fly. He slowly and jerkily left contact with the ground. Rufus smiled, his staff beginning to glow slightly as he gave Chumley a little magical help, unbeknownst to the little chap, of course. Chumley reached a height of about 10 feet before he said, I'm very high, sir, but I can't see much of anything else. That's all right, Chumley, you come on down now, Rufus said, and he caught his small friend as he fell from the air, placing him on the ground. And so the peculiar pair continued their trek across the plain, hoping to see this strange pin in the distance. They walked for hours on hours, the shape slowly revealing itself to be a sort of black tower. And a massive tower it was. They did not reach it until the sun began to set. Reaching the base, Chumley asked, What is it? Stepping back and staring off into the sky, Rufus exclaimed, It's a tower! And those eyes could see far, there seemed to be no end to this monument. I can see that, the Chuff said. Well, what's it doing out here? He began to pace the ground around the tower. The base was not as wide as one might think, only 20 feet across maybe. It was as thin as it was tall, which is what makes it look like a pin from the distance. Which is what made it? Yeah, that's what I meant to say. It appeared to be hewn from some rugged black rock, giving it a very sinister appearance. Suddenly, the Chumley came upon an inscription carved into the very rock itself. No Chads allowed, it read. Beneath that initial statement, it continued to detail who was allowed, comprised entirely of the specifications to the ideal woman. This description continued for so long that the writing went to the ground. Chumley took a closer look. It appeared to go into the very earth itself. He looked up at Rufus. What's a Chad, master? Rufus took off his pointed wizard's hat and ran his fingers through his long, thick hair. They are a race made up entirely of men, very beautiful to look at. They charm women of many races, often to the chagrin of less beauteous men. Squinting down at the lengthy inscription on the tower's side, he added, And it would seem this may be the abode of one of those less beauteous men. Let's go inside. They passed through a narrow threshold into the tower. At first glance, it wasn't remarkable. There were no furnishings or decorations, only a staircase traveling up the walls of the tower. The stairs appeared to be made of the same rock as the rest of the structure. While this wasn't astonishing in itself, Rufus realized, the stairs seemed to continue for the entire height of the tower. Rufus and Chumley looked at one another. Up we go, announced the wizard. He put Chumley on his shoulder and began the ascent. While the wizard possessed some of the most powerful calves in all the lands, it was a few hours later when Rufus had to stop to rest. The tower had become narrower, meaning each step required a sharper turn. I know you're always curious, Master, asked Chumley, but what do you think we'll find? Chumley had fallen asleep and was in much better shape than Rufus. I don't know, my friend, Rufus gasped, but I hope to learn of who made this tower. There was a deathly silence in that enclosed space as he took a minute to catch his breath. Look at the stone. What do you notice? Chumley turned to face the stairs. Seeing nothing extraordinary, he looked at the wall. As before, it was the same color as the steps, having been made from the same stone. And then it occurred to him, it's lighter than the base, the rock, I mean. Yes, I noticed it as well. Do you remember how the inscription at the entrance seemed to go into the ground, Chumley? Chumley nodded. I do not think this tower was built, but raised. It was pulled straight from the earth, yanked out like a sword from a sheath. Rufus looked about them before turning back to his companion. Whoever or whatever made this great structure must have used very strong magic, which would also make he, or it, very strong as well. Chumley stared at his master about the gate. We must be at the ready. The master of this tower might not be pleased to see us, but ancient or young, dead or living, I have the utmost desire to learn how this great dwelling was crafted. Let's keep on. With that, Rufus resumed the long climb up. Poor Chumley wrapped his little fingers around Rufus's neck, having now been made to feel very frightened. And so the trek continued. The wizard and his small companion lost all track of time, as there was little light in the tower. Chumley was reassured slightly by the doggedness of Rufus. His master possessed knowledge of very strong and arcane magics, though he did not know if he was knowledgeable enough to create a tower from the very ground. And as the turns became narrower, the little gremlin noticed the stone was becoming lighter. Whereas before the tower had a coal-black color, it was now gray like a humble village church. Finally, after many hours of ascent, there appeared before them a ceiling. The stone here was nearly white. In the ceiling was cut a neat square hole through which the staircase continued. Let's hope we have arrived, my friend, Rufus whispered to Chumley on his shoulder. I think they survived. They passed through the entrance and found themselves in a room. Like the rest of the tower, there were no windows. However, the room was swelteringly hot and smelled of sweat and mold. Bits of rubbish were strewn about, leaving unseemly piles. Rufus pressed his sleeve to his nose. There was a soiled bed to his left. Looking around, his eyes were attracted to a dim glow coming from a seer's ball floating opposite where he stood.
Coming from a what?
A seer's ball.
Oh, seers, like, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Like seers, like the
no, S-E-E-R.
Gotcha.
Like a seer's ball floating opposite where he was stood. He gasped. Hunched over the seer's ball was a massive beast. A huge sweaty gnat staring at the ball's image. At this noise, its neck snapped to the side, and seeing Rufus let out a horrific screech. Chumley fell off Rufus' shoulder and ran to cling to his leg, absolutely terrified. Rufus's eyes widened, and he raised his staff, letting blaze a bright light to stun the beast in anticipation of its attack. But the beast didn't attack. Instead, it spoke. Are you guys Chads? I hate Chads. I'd have a girlfriend if it weren't for those jerks. Rufus realized he'd shut his eyes. When he opened them, he realized the creature in front of him wasn't a beast at all. It was a person. Completely stunned, Rufus attempted to understand what he was looking at. While the creature most definitely was a person, it was easily the fattest person he had ever seen. Though it was completely naked, its mountains of fleshy rolls made it impossible to discern the creature's sex. The person's face was enveloped in fat and completely bulbous. Rufus realized the creature must have been a he, due to the wispy hairs which clung to its wobbling chins. The creature stared back at Rufus and dug its hand into a crinkly sack, pulling out a handful of orange food and shoving them into its mouth.
Oh my god.
The creature proceeded to chew its unworldly meal, making a series of horrific and disgusting noises. The bag was labeled Cheetos. Rufus realized the room's stench was coming from the creature. It seemed to be sweating excessively, no doubt due to its bulk in the room's heat. So, it said, "Are you Chads?" "No, we're not Chads," Rufus managed to say. The creature grumbled and turned its back to them so it could continue staring at the seer's orb. Rufus realized it was levitating. That is, the creature itself wasn't levitating, but it was sitting hunched on top of a levitating stool. Its,
Oh.
its piles of fat drooped over the stool, obscuring it from Rufus's view. "How are you doing that?" Chumley asked. "What?" the creature said through another mouthful of Cheetos. "Levitated." "Oh, I use magic," the creature said. "Are you guys gonna leave? You're annoying," it said, still fixated on the seer's ball. Rufus reluctantly walked closer. "What's your name? And how did you come to live in this tower?" Rufus realized the images on the seer's ball were those of naked women.
Oh my gosh.
"John, I made it with magic after my parents made me move out." John shoveled more Cheetos in his mouth. The sack seemed to be never ending. "I'm a wizard." "A wizard? As am I. How is it I've never heard of you?" John shrugged, briefly sinking his face deeper into his neck. "I don't know. I've been here for like 100 years. 400 years. Maybe that's why." Rufus and Chumley were stunned. They knew wizards could greatly lengthen their lives. Rufus himself was 40 years of age, but looked only 25. It was possible, but rare, for a very powerful wizard to live for centuries as this one claimed to. Rufus looked around the filthy room. He felt himself becoming very, very angry. Put out, even. It was shameful, an abomination, that a wizard of such knowledge should be sitting here and hiding, contributing nothing to the arts of magic. Angry, he turned to leave, but a blob of liquid fell from the ceiling into his eye.
Ooh.
"Oh!" Rufus cried, trying to wipe it out. The liquid was salty and smelled of body odor.
Ah.
This is based off of a real experience I had, wherein at our high school dance, it was so hot and sweaty that sweat began to condense and fall from the ceiling. Yeah.
Oh my god.
So it is physically possible, is what I'm telling you.
Oh, jeez.
And that was enough. Rufus, young wizard he was, hadn't climbed the height of this tower to have nothing to show for it. He spun around, stamping the butt of his staff against the stone floor. Chumley jumped. John's seer's ball shattered. He turned around, at first confused, but then terrified when he saw the rage expressed on Rufus's face. "Pathetic excuse for a wizard!" Rufus shouted. A grave aura seemed to be exerting itself from him. "You have sat here for 4 centuries with nothing accomplished. You are clearly one who has great power and knowledge, having raised the tower and created it from the very ground. Yet you have done little but grow fat since then. You could have written countless books improving upon the knowledge of wizards of all races. But have you written anything, save for a whining inscription list of traits you wish to see in a woman? Indeed, if it weren't for your seer's ball, I doubt you would have laid eyes on anyone. What have you to say for yourself?" But not John, though mighty sorcerer he must have been, said not a thing. He simply sat on his stool, his face burrowed into his neck, trembling greatly. Rufus allowed his power to wane. He sagged. "It seems to me," he said after a moment of silence, "the only impact you could possibly leave on this earth is if you were to sit on it." He sat on the floor, placing his forehead on the palm of his head. The silence sank in. Finally, Chumley spoke up. "Will you at least tell us the story of how you got here?" "No," he pouted. Chumley blinked. "Well, why not?" "I don't talk to Chaz." "Oh, I've had enough of this." Rufus stood up and strode over to the putrid sorcerer across from him. "Hey!" John tried to protest, but could hardly do anything to protect himself. Before he knew it, the young wizard was pressing his staff against the forehead of the fat one.
Ooh.
Their eyes both glazed over. Rufus collapsed on the floor, and the last thing he saw were John's smelly fat rolls. John's life rolled through Rufus's mind, pounding onto him like a torrentious rain.
Oh.
He saw a fully grown man ejected from his parents' home. He saw that young man enroll in the Library of Magical Arts. He saw the man stalk a woman who rejected him. He poured all his time into learning magic so he could get revenge on that woman, only to be booted from the library when his true intentions were discovered. He secluded himself in a slum, reading and practicing from stolen books. Amassing power, he learned how to create from nothing food, and even how to form rifts between 2 points in space. He used one such rift to bring himself to the plains of Nainnar, where he thrust a huge slot of stone from the earth in the shape he pleased. He made that slot of earth his home, far from those who tormented him, leaving only a demanding inscription as his last hope for human connection. And finally, nothing. 400 years of nothing. Rufus awoke, ears ringing. He felt nauseous, but Chumley managed to help him sit up on the dank floor. A few feet away, John was throwing a fit. "You loser, you read my mind! How did you do that?" "I'm too strong for you." That was a bad reading, sorry. Rufus put his hand to his temple. He had an absolutely thwacking headache. "You've barely done anything in the last 400 years. It was easy. How have you spent so much time doing nothing?" John's face turned dark red. He looked rather like a tomato. He began to lunge wildly forward, thrashing his arms about. He was too enraged to think. "I think it would be better if we left, Master," Chumley proffered. The little gremlin and his master made to leave, but stopped dead in their tracks when John suddenly fell off his stool. Rufus and Chumley stood mouths agape as John's momentum carried him forward, and straight through the hole in the staircase. John fell on his side and began to roll.
Oh no!
For a brief, astonishing moment, it seemed as if he had rolled down the entire length of the tower staircase. But something changed in his trajectory, and he soon fell in the wide gap in the center of the tower, falling to his doom and violently bouncing off the sides of the stairs as he went.
Oh wow.
The pair gawked, completely uncertain of what to make of what they had witnessed. Finally, Rufus exclaimed, "Quickly!" and picking up Chumley and his staff, began to run down the stairs. He really ought to have added railings, you know. Perhaps 10 minutes into the climb down, they felt an earth-shaking rumble. "What's happened, Master? Is the tower collapsing?" "I think that was our host reaching the ground floor," Rufus replied. He hoped he wasn't dead. Maybe there was enough magic left in him to make a difference. As the wizard ran down the mighty staircase, the stone got darker and darker, finally becoming coal black. At last, they reached the entrance. And near the mass and... Sorry, I really can't read my handwriting.
Oh, this is all handwritten?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
At last they reached the entrance, and nearby the massive wizard collapsed, face first, a few steps up. "Quickly, Chumley!" Chumley hopped out of Rufus's arms and attempted to find a pulse. Doing so would have been a tall task in the best of times, but Chumley's search was fruitless. "Sir, it looks like he's dead. His body is still warm. I don't think the fall killed him." "How could that be? Even if the impact was somehow blunted, don't you think his heart would have given out?" "I don't know. Maybe he blacked out. I think his fall was padded. It looks like he tried to climb the stairs and then his heart gave out." So basically what happened was John was so fat he survived the fall.
Yeah.
But when he was fine, but when he tried to climb the staircase up, he had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
That's a little morbid, but that's what I wrote, I guess.
Okay.
For the umpteenth time that day, Rufus was dumbstruck. He leaned against his staff, feeling utterly exhausted. "I don't suppose it's just the run down those stairs which has made me so tired," he thought, pondering the fleshy mass before him. "There lies perhaps the most ingenious sorcerer that ever was." With that, he felt a deep sorrow wash over him. It was not a loss just for what he could have learned, but for the rest of the world and what it could have gained too. Chumley was just about to comfort his master when the tower began to tremble violently. "Run, now!" Rufus shouted. "I think it's going to collapse." As best as they could, they leapt over John's body and tumbled back out the narrow doorway. Outside, it was morning again. The two of them kept running, terrified the massive structure would crash down upon them. "Look, sir," Chumley cried. Rufus turned around and nearly fell over himself as he tried to make sense of what he was seeing. The tower wasn't falling over. It was sliding back down into the earth. The wizard and the chuff looked upon the tower as it slipped down, steadily gaining speed and changing color as the different layers of rock passed them by. On and on it went like a giant pushpin being pressed into cork. Finally, after a period of a few minutes, the tower slid into place with a tremendous thunk. And where the tower once proudly stood, there is now a massive oak, over 4 centuries old. All the unnoticed soil at the top of the tower jumped up into the air for a moment before coming back to the ground with a far less momentous whoop. In the soil was even a tree, standing stiff as if nothing at all had happened whatsoever. Rufus looked around. Grassy green plains extending ever into the distance, and in the middle of it all, right in front of him, was a tree. Ah, my goodness. What was I thinking when I wrote it? Where the tower once proudly stood, there was now a massive oak, over 4 centuries old. Wow, a bit repetitive. Chumley galloped over to the tree. There was something on it. A note, he cried. When Rufus approached, he began to read it aloud. If you're reading this, it's because you killed me. Good freaking job, loser. You're now cursed. My friends don't like you, and they're going to kill you. Signed, John the Wizard. Rufus gazed off in the direction of the rising sun. We best be going home, Chumley, he said with a sadness. Yes, sir. Chumley clambered up Rufus's side, scritching and scratching him all the way. They had been walking for some time when Chumley said, I don't think we should be worried about the curse, master. Why do you say that, Chumley? Because, sir, the little gremlin gave with a cheeky grin. I don't think John the Wizard had any friends as to worry about.
No.
There you go, that's the story.
Woo! That's good.
Listening. Thank you. I hope I didn't get too grotesque with those details about John the Fat Wizard.
It was amazing. Yeah, I feel like we should do that more often. Like, just have like long bits of our stories that are just like fun, like silly stuff. You know, like I tried to do a little bit of that in this one, but I feel like I feel like my bit of my story was really short this time.
Yeah, it was actually a little short, I think, compared to what previously.
Shorter than I've done in the past. So.
Sure. Well, I hope that was relaxing.
Yeah, it was good.
I got that. I don't remember where I got it. I got it from like some Reddit post. The idea where it was like making fun of neckbeardy guys.
Okay.
And I kind of just came up with the idea of, it was from a 4chan post. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it gave me the idea of like a neckbeard wizard in a tower.
Yeah. Nice.
On one hand, it's really disgusting, but on the other hand, I kind of want John's life. I kind of just want to, sit in my room and not have to deal with people and just eat Cheetos all day.
I don't think I want that life at all.
You don't?
I wouldn't mind Rufus's life. Just like walking.
Being a cool wizard. Maybe I'll be John and you be Rufus.
Okay.
I mean, John's got everything he needs. It doesn't matter that he's just like this super like roly fat man.
Then I'll come to your house and attempt to reason with you and probably end up killing you on accident.
Killing me on accident?
Yeah.
I'll keep you there.
Oh boy.
I'll make you eat endless Cheetos.
No.
Fate worse than death. See, that doesn't sound so bad, just eating Cheetos.
Yeah.
I have a friend, she told me she was like playing video games and just like eating Cheetos and Mountain Dew. And she ate so many that she had to go throw up.
Oh my gosh.
So I think she's actually John the Fat Neckbeard Wizard.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that got a bit off topic. Thank you for listening. Shall we wrap things up there?
Yeah. Thanks for listening to the podcast and sitting through our stories.
Thank you indeed.
We hope that you enjoyed, and we would love your feedback if you have any topics you'd like us to discuss or something. And like and subscribe and share with your friends. See ya!
Bye!
Bye!